Hello everybody, it is Tao at the Forge, and after a short time away I am back with a new channel format, and hopefully we'll be able to keep this going for at least a little while, so come and join me for the ride. So welcome back. As I said, before I begin, I just want to remind you that if you do like the work that I'm doing, it'd be awesome if you could support the channel by liking or subscribing to the channel or just leaving a comment. And those are ways that you can actually really help to support me and the work that I do for free. It doesn't cost you anything, and also to help spread the word about, small channels like mine. Another thing you can do is also to link me or share the video as well, and I really appreciate any help that you could give me. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is, as you can see on the screen, that Kaladesh Remastered is coming to Arena. Now Kaladesh and Aether Revolt, now these are both mixed into Kaladesh Remastered, so they're not going to come out two different sets, but it is actually a really sweet set. It's got amazing historic cards in it, and it's actually a super fun draft. It's got really powerful stuff. It's also got some really broken stuff as well, but the Kaladesh set is actually one of the best sets that came out in recent times, so I'd encourage you guys to try it out, do the drafts or whatever. And on that, you can see I actually like to show this. I actually got a 6-in-1 and Premier draft, right? So it's sometimes really difficult to do this. Usually, I can get around 3 to 4 wins consistently, maybe up to 5, but I'm actually pretty pleased I was able to get to 7 wins, so we're actually 7-in-1. I think I said 6-in-1 earlier. Oh well, 7-in-1. Let's claim this prize. Okay, and there we go. Okay, so going into the store today, there was actually, I think, a pretty sweet deal. I think I already got, 500 gold. So please make sure you do get the 500 gold there. All right, so we also have Commander's Legends pre-release weekend, and what I want you guys to do is remember bread. Now, bread stands for bombs, removal, evasion, aggro, and dirt. All right, so what you want to do first is look for things that are going to be bombs, right? And then after that, look for things to remove your opponent's bombs. Okay, after that, then what you're going to do is look for evasive creatures and then just good aggro creatures. And that's how, actually, just following those simple rules, that's how I'm able to do well in draft pretty much all the time. I rarely, sometimes it does happen, but rarely ever go 1-in-3 or even 2-in-3 or anything like that. Usually I can get an even result, 3-in-3 or 4-in-3, even 5 or 6, and occasionally even go all the way. So, make sure you're following bread. Now, on top of this, I do want to send a shout out to my local game store, Century Box Cards. Now, they are located in Canada, so if you are one of my Canadian viewers, then definitely check them out. They have an online presence as well. They're probably the biggest store, biggest Magic the Gathering store in my city. But yeah, they are actually pretty amazing. They've got great service, great people that work there, and you should support them if you can. And if you're looking for cards, give their web store a check out. I think that we really need to help out LGSs right now who could be actually kind of hurting in these lockdown times. So I do want to also spend a little bit of time just talking about why you should support your local game store, right? So why support them? Well, first of all, when it's not a lockdown, it gives you a place to play, right? It's a good place for people to gather, and the game is called Magic the Gathering, right? And because we're gathering to play, right? And so, having a place to play, you can buy stuff on eBay or Amazon or, just online or whatever, but those places don't necessarily give you a place to play and meet up with other people, so if you appreciate those things, then you should support your local game stores to do that. The other thing is that places like, your local game store, have people who are really knowledgeable about the game, like super knowledgeable and very passionate about it. And there's been a million times where, I've come in there and they've given me advice about different cards, different deck ideas or strategies. Sometimes they have deals on where they can help you out. You can get extra, they collect points, or, they sometimes just, they give you a deal on whatever, and then the other thing is they can also give you news. So recently, for instance, my local game store, I mentioned that I was looking for the Pathway cards. And they actually, one of them, a worker there, actually realized that they went on sale at another place and messaged me and said, "Hey, you know what? I remember you were looking for these cards, and they're actually on sale at another store. So maybe you should go pick them up." That's actually tremendous customer service there, where they're even willing to refer you to somewhere else, to get a better deal. And game stores like that are really great places, and that's why you should support them all the time. Now, for full disclosure, I am not sponsored by Century Box Cards, but if you guys are watching, I'd be open to it. But I'm not sponsored by anyone right now. That's my honest opinion of their shop. I think they actually have a great service. They run a great, they run a great store, and things are super friendly. I love being there. Everyone loves being there, and everyone should support their local game stores. It just helps out so much and keeps this game alive. So I wanted to give you guys an update on what I'm going to be doing with my channel. So instead of doing a daily deal review, what I'm going to be doing is a weekly video, and I'm going to be covering all the things that I think that people, especially even me, just like to see in a week. So what I'm going to be doing is going through a weekly spec, talking about cards that I think that you might want to be picking up, that are really cheap and might be increasing in price later, or maybe just a good deal, something that's coming out that's totally worth it. A captioning contest, so I'm going to ask you guys to leave a caption to a piece of magic artwork, and the person that I think that leaves the funniest or the best caption is one I'll put him into a draw, and there'll be a draw for a prize later on. There's going to be a weekly deck tech, there's going to be pack cracking, and there's also going to be a pack one pick one event as well, where you guys get to look at the cards and see what you would do in a draft environment. And this week we're going to be having pack one pick two, because it is Commander Legends pre-release weekend. So with that being said, let's move on to the weekly specs. Now, this week's weekly spec is going to be the Pathway cards. Now, these cards just came out in Zendikar Rising, and if you don't know what they are cards that basically are dual mana cards. But what they allow you to do is, they're not actually dual mana cards in that they can tap for, say, green or white, like the Branchloft Pathway. But instead, what you can do is when you play it, you can choose to play either the green side or the white side. And then after that, it always taps for green, or it always taps for white, and you can't actually flip it afterwards. Now, the thing is, especially with the popularity of Commander coming up, everybody's looking for mana fixing. And a card like this can really, really help with your mana fixing, because, you might not need it necessarily to tap for two, or for two different colors all the time, but it does help you to fix your mana. And right now, these cards are super, super cheap, right? So you can get them in, they're like, $5.99 each, $7.99. These are Canadian prices, so if you're watching in America, this would be like about $4 or $5 each, for each one. And that's actually a tremendous value for what they are. And I can't see them actually going lower, and so at most they're going to stay the same or go up. Now, if you look at any deck, the most expensive cards usually are the lands, right? They cost a ton of money, and the rest, you could have the whole rest of your deck costs like $50, and the lands could be like $300, right? So it's totally worth it to invest in lands, and I've rarely regretted having good utility lands, and especially in Commander, because you can't use play sets of things, right? Then you're having something that could get either one or another color is super, super valuable. And so I feel like these cards are actually just going to go up in value, and I think that they're really cheap right now. They're still coming out, people are still opening more packs of them, so their prices are likely not to necessarily skyrocket. But I think once this set goes out of rotation, then these values are gonna, or not out of rotation, once people stop opening more boosters of this, then I feel like these cards are gonna go up in value. So if you do like these cards, and you can already see some of them, like some of these ones are foils at $15 already, I think people are going to be looking at getting these and picking these up. And I feel like if you're into Commander, especially like Commander, then these would be good pickups, because they're going to go up in value. So anyways, that is the weekly spec. Welcome to Fun Flavor Text, and what we're going to do in Fun Flavor Text is we're going to look at a card from Magic's history and what you guys are going to do is change the flavor text to see what it should say or what it could say that would be hilarious or funny, or maybe even fitting with Magic's lore. So anyways, please, before we begin, do not put something racist or hateful or something like that would get my channel banned, because I work really hard on it and I don't want to get my channel banned. And what you can do is send your suggestions to tao@theforge@gmail.com, and if I select your comment, then what I'll do is I'll put your name in a draw, and at the end of the year, what I'll do is I'll make a draw and send you a prize if if you're one of the people that got drawn. So anyways, that is it. So today we are going to be looking at Bone Shaman. So Bone Shaman is from Ice Age. It's 2 and 2 red, and it's basically summon a giant, right? So any creature damaged by Bone Giant this turn, or Bone Shaman this turn, cannot regenerate until end of turn. And its flavor text is "Rattle me bones as I cross the floor, and the bones in your grave will rattle no more." So if you have a better comment in there, then put it in there, and I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say. So send me those emails right away. All right, everybody, it's time to crack some packs and take some names. So let's go see. We got a whole bunch of Kaladesh packs here. So let's see. Oh, and a Zendikar Rising. So I've been playing a little bit of draft and got some Kaladesh packs using my 12 free draft player tokens. And I thought it'd be actually a good one to go into because I've got a lot of cards already in other sets. So, and I've been playing a lot of historic too. So yeah, there we go. Oh, and Skyclave Relic is actually really good. Yeah, so anyways, that's pretty sweet. Okay, Bloodchief Thirst is actually really good too. Alright, let's go open 10 Kaladesh packs and see what rares we get. So, okay. Oh, okay, a Mythic. Eighth Worst Marvel, that's pretty good. Okay, Master Trin, Peace Walker Colossus. Alright, interesting. And yeah, all of these are actually very good. So, alright, I am pretty pleased with those. No inventions yet. And let's go open up a Kaladesh pack. Okay. Oh, Tezzeret. Sweet. Alright. And then we got, let's see, what else do we have? Okay. Some more. This Long Tusk Cub is a pain in the ass to deal with, but it's actually a really good creature, especially in draft. Okay, Toolcraft Exemplar. And alright, let's see what's the last one we got. Trophy Mage. There's actually so many good cards in Kaladesh. It's such a good set. Ah, Aetherstorm Rock. Okay, so 4 mana, 3/3 of flying. Whenever Aetherstorm Rock or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get energy. Whenever Aetherstorm Rock attacks, you may pay 2. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it and tap up to 1 card or creature defending player controls. This actually wouldn't be too bad in draft, especially if you've got an energy-based deck. I'm not sure if I would play it necessarily in Constructed, but yeah, I would like it a lot. I'm actually running I ran Universal Solvent in one of my drafts as well, and it actually worked out pretty good. So, okay, that is it. Stay tuned for some actual real life pack openings, and that's it for Arena for now. So what we're going to be doing is we are going to be opening up 5 packs of Commander Legends. Now, these 5 packs were the 5 packs that I got for the pre-release kit, and I'm going to open up one later for another part of the video. So what we're doing is we're looking at trying to get about $42, and it's about 50 bucks Canadian to get a pre-release kit. So we're looking at about $42 overall value, and let's see if we can get it. So we're looking at getting like some pretty decent stuff here, and I'll let you guys just watch the rest of the video, and I'll come back at the end just to discuss to see if we got it. So as you can see, it's highly unlikely that we're going to be making this the goal of $42 with this last pack here. And it's just a reminder for you guys that it's often better just to buy the singles, and you really are gambling when you're buying packs. So remember, as many people say, and as Professor is fond of saying, buy singles. And we'll see, yep, 27.36, we're far short of the $42. Mostly we got just junk rares, but that's the way it is. Alright, we're here to do Pack 1 Pick 1. So today we're going to be opening Commander's Legends since it's Commander's Legends weekend. So yeah, let's take a look and see. Now remember, this one's going to be kind of weird because it's not Pack 1 Pick 1, it's Pack 1 Pick 2 because it's Commander Draft. Now these come in smaller booster boxes, but you do get 20 cards in a pack and you get to pick 2. So it's going to be a special edition for our first time Pack 1 Pick 1. It's going to be Pack 1, Pick 2. Alright, so let's see what we got. Okay, so we got Kitesail Corsair. So Kitesail Corsair is, let's zoom in on him a little bit here. Okay, so we got a 1 in a blue. Kitesail Corsair has flying as long as it's attacking. That's a 2/1. Alright. We got Crimson Fleet Commodore. Alright, so 3 in a red for a 5/2 Trampler. When Crimson Fleet Commodore enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. Alright. Universal Solvent, 1 mana artifact, and you can pay 7 and tap it, destroy target permanent. That can be a land or a creature or anything you want. Ivy Lane Denizen, so 3 in a green for a 2/3 Elf Warrior. Whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Elvish Doomsayer, 1 in a black for a 1/1 Elf Shaman. When Elvish Doomsayer dies, each opponent discards a card. Alright, that might make it so people don't want him to die. Ripscale Predator, 4 and 2 red, so 6/5 Menace. Alright, so it's just a dinosaur, no other abilities, but that's still pretty sweet. Menace is actually a pretty good one. Thorn of the Black Rose, for 3 and a black, you get a 1/3 Death Touch. When Thorn of the Black Rose enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. So Monarch, pretty heavy there. Okay, Staunch Throne Guard, a 5 mana 2/5 construct artifact creature with vigilance. When Staunch Throne Guard enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. Oh, so many Monarch cards. Slith Ascendant, 1 and 2 white for a 1/1 flyer, creature Slith. What's a Slith? Interesting. Alright, if you know what a Slith is, put it into the comments. I mean, it looks like some weird undead type creature, okay? But when Slith Ascendant deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Okay, that's actually pretty good. You get it out early, you can maybe start attacking with it, and, it starts getting built up, and, it has evasion, so that's pretty good. A Terramorphic Expanse, so basically a tap land that can search for a sack land that can sack for any basic land. Trove Tracker, a 2 and a blue for a 2/2 human pirate. When it dies, you draw a card and has Encore. So what that means is for 5 and 2 blue, you can exile the card from your graveyard. For each opponent, create a token copy that attacks that opponent this turn. If able, they gain haste and sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. So if you have a way to basically halt the turn so there's no end step, then you can make this stick around. But I think what would happen is it would just sacrifice at the very next end step after that. But still, if you come back and you get a whole bunch of 2/2s that can just attack. Ixalans Bowmaster. Alright, so that's a 2 and a green for a 2/2 Elvish Archer with Reach. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may have Ixalans Bowmaster deal 2 damage to target creature with flying. Things like this sometimes can be really, really devastating to your opponent. That 2 damage to creatures with flying can be really, really harsh. Prophetic Prism, 2 mana artifact. When Prophetic Prism enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card, and then you can pay 1 and you can tap it and add mana of any color. So this is a way for you to just kind of filter out colors and also get a card off of it. So Nadir's Nightblade, 2 and a black for a 1/3 Elvish Warrior. Whenever a token you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Alright, so we're getting into the uncommons here.
Okay, so we got Vow of Lightning. For 2 and a red, we get to enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2, has first strike, and can't attack you or a planeswalker you control. That's actually pretty interesting. So normally you would put an enchantment like this on a creature you control and then try and attack it, and I guess you still could. But what you typically want to do is put it on one of the big fatties that your opponent's going to have, and then they get +2/+2 first strike, and they can't attack you, and so your opponent has to attack other people with it. It's especially good if you have if you put on one of those creatures that says they must attack every turn. All right. Explosion of Riches, 5 and a red for a sorcery. You get to draw a card, then each other player may draw a card. Whenever a card is drawn this way, Explosion of Riches deals 5 damage to target your opponent chosen at random from among your opponents. That's actually pretty awesome. So you could do up to 15 damage to one person. Wow. That's actually that could be really brutal. Okay, so Blade Griff Prototype. This is our first rare. You get 5 mana for a 3/2 flying artifact creature that's also a griffin. Whenever Blade Griff Prototype deals combat damage to a player, destroy target non-land permanent of that player's choice that one of your opponents controls. Okay, so this is actually pretty good in the political game. You might say to one of your opponents, say, just let me hit you with this," and then that person gets to choose someone else's permanence, which then gets destroyed. And so yeah, that's there's a good political game there. Yeah, I actually kind of like this card. Yuri, Master of the Review. So 1 black, 1 red. This could be your commander. So legendary 1/1. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Yuri, Master of the Review. When Yuri dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So basically, that's similar to what's that other card? It's 1 red, 1 black, and has haste, and I forget. Whenever it attacks, it gets a +1/+1, and then when it dies, it deals damage to equal to its power to whatever target. Yeah, but this is actually pretty good, right? So, especially if you can, keep him going on, right, and like keep things going on, keep things sacrificing. Like imagine this with like a Cauldron Familiar and a Witch's Oven. Right, like this thing would just get out of control really, really fast, but people would be reluctant to kill it. Right, so this could be, and he's a cheap commander too. You can get him out really fast. Okay, we got Malcolm, Keen-Eyed Navigator. So this is another uncommon. Could be a commander as well. So for 2 and a blue, you get a 2/2 flying legendary creature, a Siren Pirate. Whenever one or more pirates you control deals damage to your opponent, you create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. And this can be a partner. So if you have another commander with partner, then this could be the partner. Come By Witches. Now this is actually, it's a foil too. Oh, that's really nice. So foil Come By Witches. This is actually a reprint of a card that's actually very good in Pauper. So it's 2 mana for a 1/3 human wizard, and it's a 2 black, of course. You can tap it, and it deals 1 damage to any target and 1 damage to a target of an opponent's choice, and that could be you, right? So it's kind of interesting, and it really makes for good political games as well. So that's actually a pretty decent one, and I'm actually glad we got this in foil because it's a really neat card. And then our token is an Elvish Warrior. So which ones did you pick? Would you pick a commander from this, or would you pick one of the other cards and hope to pick up another commander somewhere? Remember, you can pick 2 in this one, so put it in the comments and let me know what would be your 2 picks for this pack.
Alright, this week's deck tech is a deck called Puka Trade, and in Puka Trade we are basically trying to make a whole bunch of bad trades. The whole deck centers around one enchantment called Puka's Mischief. Now Puka's Mischief is a 3 and a blue that says at the beginning of your upkeep you may exchange control of a target non-land permanent you control and target non-land permanent an opponent controls with an equal or lesser converted mana cost. Now that's a lot of words, but what that means is that you can look at the converted mana cost of one of your permanents and trade it with one of your opponents if it has the same converted mana cost or less. So you can't trade a 3 mana thing for a 4 mana thing, but you can trade a 3 mana thing for another 3, 2, or 1 or 0, right? So, and you cannot choose lands, right? So you can't take their lands, but that's okay. Now, especially because this is in modern, most of the modern decks play most of their stuff in the very, very low, in the low range, right? So anything like usually 4 mana or under, and that's why we play a lot of stuff in that range. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to play a stall game, and then what we're going to try and do is steal our opponent's deck, right? And basically beat them with their own deck. Like I said, this is actually a huge, really super fun one in multiplayer because you can start like trading each other's stuff and like moving enchantments around and all sorts of stuff like that. It's actually pretty cool, and I really like it a lot. Okay, so anyways, here we go. We got a Fog Bank. This is our stall game. So we got a Fog Bank, one in a blue, and it is a defender, but you can prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by Fog Bank. So that means things with like Death Touch, you know, like huge beaters and stuff like that. They can't get through Fog Bank because it just can't be killed. You prevent all the combat damage that would be done to it. So yeah, it's just a super, super annoying thing. Your opponent has to use targeted removal to get rid of it. Otherwise, they'll just never get a creature through. There's one thing that you do need to be aware of, though, is that Fog Bank will not stop creatures with trample. So if you are trying to block something with a 10-10, that 10 damage or 8 damage will still get through, even though the combat damage doesn't get assigned. Alright, so Fog Bank doesn't stop things with trample. Okay, but we got also a Wall of Omens, a 0/4, and basically it's awesome because, well, first of all, it survives Lightning Bolt, and also it helps you draw a card, so it just replaces itself as soon as you put it down. Right? Then we got some creatures. We got a 4 mana 4/1 called Bronze Bombshell. Now, this one's an awesome card, especially the flavor text is, ooh, shiny, let's pull it off the chain and take her with us, right? And then you take this one and it just like destroys your opponent and it deals 7 damage. Okay, so when a player other than Bronze Bombshell's owner controls it, that player sacrifices it. If the player does, Bronze Bombshell deals 7 damage to him or her. Now, the good thing about this is 4/1, and we can put it down to basically just attack one of our opponents and put some pressure on them, or even just as a good blocker. But what we can do is later on, we could trade this away and then basically do 7 damage to our opponent. Okay, so what we're going to try and do is get things like this down. And these are things that we generally want to keep. We want to keep Fog Bank, we want to keep Wall of Omens, we generally want to keep Bronze Bombshell, but we are willing to trade this. Now, the other one that we have is 3 of Salt Skidder. Now, Salt Skidder might seem like a terrible card. Okay, it's a 3 and a white, and it's a 3/4. Whenever another creature comes into play, remove Salt Skidder from the game. So anytime a creature comes into play at all, you remove it from the game, and then you return it back to play under its owner's control at the end of the turn. Right? And so basically what you can do is at the beginning of your turn, you can trade Salt Skidder to your opponent for one of the 4 mana, like for one of their 4 mana or less creatures or enchantments or artifacts or whatever, right? And then you play down a creature like a Bronze Bombshell or a Fog Bank or something like that. The Salt Skidder will leave the battlefield, and at the end of the turn it comes back to your control, right? And so basically you just get this back and you just keep trading it over and over again. Okay, another thing we have is 2 Sorceress Spyglasses, and basically that's just basically to shut down your opponent's stuff, right? So anything they have, like a Planeswalker or stuff like that, we want to use Sorceress Spyglass to try and shut their game plan down and not let them do anything. Our deck otherwise has a really tough time dealing with Planeswalkers, and so it's good to get this. And of course, once you have it, you put the name on it. You can name whatever activated ability, and then just trade it to your opponent for something, and now they have it, and they've actually have an artifact that has their own things listed on it. Okay, following that, we have a Journey to Nowhere, 2 of. Now, this could be actually like a Path to Exile, but we actually want the enchantment. We want things to stick around, right? So we got Journey to Nowhere. It's a 2 mana enchantment, and basically Journey to Nowhere enters the battlefield, you exile a target creature. When it leaves the battlefield, you return the exiled creature to the battlefield under its owner's control. So it's just a cheap way to get rid of an opponent's creature, and that could be basically any creature you want. So any big fatty that they have, you can just get out, right? And then you can basically use that, trade that off to them for another 2 mana something, right? Detention Sphere, same thing. Anybody who's playing multiples of things, so people put down a lot of one thing, right? You can use Detention Sphere and get all of those things back, right? And then once again, you can just trade that away. You can just trade it back to your opponent, and now they have the Detention Sphere and you have something else that they have. Okay, Nevermore, same thing, right? As Nevermore enters the battlefield, you name a non-land card, and then your opponent just can't cast that card. And then once they can't cast that card, then you trade it away. You just give them the Nevermore and you take something useful and start beating them with that. Okay, another one along those lines is Ixalans Binding. So Ixalans Binding is a 3 and a white enchantment. So when it enters the battlefield, you exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Ixalans Binding leaves the battlefield, and your opponents can't cast spells with the same name as the exiled card, right? And so then basically you put that down, and your opponents just can't cast anything with that name. And then now you can still cast spells with the exiled card. So you got to be careful when you trade this away, but it basically shuts down your opponent's deck, right? So any like these glass cannons and stuff where, like they might have something that, that's on there that you want to get rid of, you can put this down and they just can't cast it at all, right? We also have then our Puka's Mischief, and then that's about it. Now, in addition, we got 2 mana leaks. Now, we got to be careful because we want to control our opponent, but we don't want to just have stuff not on the battlefield. We want to have a ton of things on the battlefield to trade away. Mana leaks good, but if you have maybe 4 of them, then it's difficult to, you're getting rid of things that you could trade. And the rest of the deck is basically just Vencer the Sojourner. Now, Vencer the Sojourner is basically a requirement of the deck. It's probably the most expensive piece outside of the lands, but it is definitely required. So he has a 5 mana, he's a 5 mana planeswalker, and you can exile target non-land or target permanent, it doesn't say non-land, you own, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. Now, what this means is it says target permanent you own, not you control. Right, so what you can do is you can give something away, so you can, I don't know, play like a Detention Sphere, right, trade it off to your opponent, right, and then let's say your opponent plays something else, right, you can use Vencer, return it back to your hand, and then cast it back, right? So return the battlefield copy under your control at the beginning of the end step, so it just goes back to under your control again, and then especially, let's say, I don't know, they got like some goblin or whatever, right? And then you capture it with Detention Sphere, they cast another of the same goblin, right? Then what you do is you can use Vencer to bounce the Detention Sphere back out of play. It goes back to your hand, they get their goblin back, but it has summoning sickness. Then at the end of turn, it comes back, and now you got both goblins trapped under the Detention Sphere, right? The other thing is, the second thing he has is creatures can't be blocked this turn. We don't really care about that. That's not really what we're going to be doing. But because we're controlling our opponents so much and we're stealing all their stuff, very often we can actually just use Vencer to get all the way to his -8, and then you get an emblem is whenever you cast a spell, exile target permanent. And then what you do is just start casting your spells and just exiling your opponent's lands, right? And they can't actually cast anything, and eventually you'll get a Salt Skidder or a Bronze Bombshell out and just start beating them down with that, or with the creatures that you stole that you traded badly for, right? So anyways, that's why it's super fun. It's so awesome to beat your opponent with their own deck. I just love this deck. It's just so fun to play. All right, now the land is what really makes this super expensive. Like if you look at the land, it's like over half the price is like just in lands, right? So we got 2 of Flooded Strands, 4 Glacial Fortress, 4 Hallowed Fountains, 4 Islands, 4 Plains, 4 Seachrome Coast. Now These make things a little better because they help you fix your mana, but they are definitely not required. As you can see, like everything is just like one blue, one black, or one blue, one white. I don't think there's anything that requires two, oh, Nevermore I guess is two white, but everything else is just one blue, one white. So if you wanted to, instead of doing your 22 lands with all these like other, fancy lands, you could actually just replace these with, 11 11 islands and 11 plains, right? And that would actually help you, to fix your mana, and would cut the cost of this down quite a bit. Now, if you can't find Ixalans Binding, you can also use Ashiok's Eraser, right? It's basically the same spell, except it's a counter spell. So you can actually use it as a counter spell and counter something your opponent has. It might actually be better instead of Mana Leak, but it would help to shut things down. So it's something to think about. And also, it's only like $2 for Ashiok's Eraser, so it's something to think about putting in the deck. Aside from that, the only thing that's super expensive is the Vencer. You don't need 4 of them. I'd say 3 or even 2 is good enough. I think 3 is better because you do want to try and see it every game, but over the long term of the game, if you end up with 2 of these in your opening hand, it's going to be really feel bad. So don't put a 4 of these in there. Other than that, we have our sideboard. Now, there's some things that our deck just does not do well against, and that's like really fast burn strategies. So we got our sun droplets. All right, so 3 sun droplets is going to help us to control our opponent. We also have, against some artifact decks, we have some problems. So we're going to play 2 Stony Silence in the sideboard. Our opponent might also have some graveyard recursion stuff, which is really difficult for us because we might capture things and they would just sacrifice it or whatever, but we can use Grafdigger's Cage to prevent our opponent from getting things out of their graveyards. Rule of Law slows down control players, so control players can't cast more than 1 spell each turn, and or combo players. It makes it really hard for combo players to play. Things like Burn and also Mill can be problematic for us because especially Mill doesn't have any creatures. So if we play a couple Leyline of Sanctity, it's going to be really difficult for them to mill us because they can never target us. And also for huge token strategies and stuff like that, we can usually take over those decks, but sometimes you just get overwhelmed and you might need a Supreme Verdict and just destroy all creatures, right? So that's it for the sideboard. Now, you could replace these with other things like that depending on your meta, but overall this is a pretty fun deck to play, and especially in multiplayer, stealing your opponent's stuff and beating them down with their own deck is pretty awesome. If your opponent tries to do the same thing to you, well, there's actually like very few win conditions in this deck. Like there are win conditions with Salt Skitter and Bronze Bombshell, but they are not very strong. The whole thing is that we're trying to steal our opponent's stuff and beat them down with their own decks. But that is it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoy this deck.